My name is Michael Highland. I'm an independent game developer here in Philadelphia. My real focus in terms of games is on looking at whether we can sort of shift how we think and play games from looking at them purely as entertainment to looking at them more as tools for growth and sort of expanding consciousness and sort of broader learning, not just education, but sort of improving ourselves. The research I'm doing, which is much more about looking at frameworks for growth, for personal development. So I've spent a lot of time looking at Ken Wilber's work. He's integral theory is his thing. So looking at integral theory and saying, can you use sort of this very robust existing framework for how people grow and develop and map that onto gameplay? Because games already are all about leveling up and about growth. Like if you think about the popular games, they're all about, and right now especially with all the achievements and the Farmville and getting more stuff and all the things that you can unlock and rewards, it's all about sort of growth and building a character. And people I don't think look at their lives that way necessarily. And I think it could be healthy to start looking not at life like totally as a game, but a little bit more like, here's an opportunity, how can I sort of optimize my life situation so that I can reach these goals or succeed better. There's a really great talk that a game designer, Jane McGonigal, just gave a few weeks ago or a month ago at TED that was all about sort of what are gamers learning. She made a great point that gamers are spending as much time playing games as they do through school, from kindergarten all the way up to senior year. It's the same number of hours you spend in school, people are now spending playing video games. So sort of a question like, what are people learning within those hours and hours they spend playing? And one of the big things she says is that they're learning, she calls it urgent optimism, but this belief that whatever the situation is, no matter how dire or how crazy it is, there's always some way you can succeed, some way you can go for, she calls it the epic win, some way you can win. So I really like that idea that if you can map that onto real life and say, no matter how crappy my situation might be, there's always going to be some way I can optimize and figure out a way to win. I guess mostly just luck. I lived in Hong Kong for 6 months and I worked at a game studio there, or sort of a game research studio. And the guy I was working with, my boss, was just like, he was like a guru type. I mean, he's a little crazy, but don't tell him I said that. Hopefully he won't see this video, but he was a little crazy and he just was always throwing stuff at me. Look at this, look at this, look at this, like consciousness expanding stuff. And he just, they just actually at that lab, they hosted the Asia Consciousness Festival, which I went to. So they brought in all these people, both scientists who are sort of coming at it from the neuroscience, like where does awareness come from? What is consciousness? And then also the sort of spiritual, like, Mani, like, the people who are doing it, but don't necessarily look at it from the sort of objective standpoint that the scientists do. So I just found really inspirational, and I started doing yoga, and I meditate, and I've just sort of been looking at video games to me seem like such a potent medium for communicating experiences and for keeping people engaged. And one of the challenges that I've found in my own sort of personal yoga practice or spiritual practice is like commitment and discipline. And I have no problem with discipline with games. Like, I'm disciplined about playing my games, so I'm thinking like if you could bring that sort of engagement factor that you get from video games to a personal growth practice of some sort, that could be a really powerful combination. And I don't know what the case is in Canada, but I know at least in the States, like, there are more self-help books sold every year than any other genre of books. Like, people, I think, really want to improve and want to make their lives better, but they don't necessarily have the right tools or the discipline or the context to make it happen. So they go from sort of one, like, oh, will this work, will this work, will this work? So I hope video games might work. But it's sort of a unique perspective. When I tell people like video games and spiritual growth, they're like, what? Because the spiritual people are not thinking about video games, and the video game people are not really thinking about spirituality. But if you look, I have a blog called Gamerthink. It's just gamerthink.com, and I have a talk I just gave recently on using video games for spiritual practice. Like, sort of, if you want to try it, it's sort of interesting. It's basically looking at, just like, I can actually explain better. There's a very interesting, tell me if I'm going too long, but there's a very interesting spiritual practice in Buddhism that all revolves around lucid dreaming. And a lucid dream, if you don't know, is a dream where you know you're dreaming. And there's actually a lot of correlation between lucid dreaming and playing a video game. They're very similar in some ways. So my thought was, could you use the same practice that exists around lucid dreaming, but for video games? And sort of look at the video game not as entertainment or as a game, but as sort of like an altered state or like a dream that you're choosing to play. So it's based on that assumption, but it's sort of interesting. It's sort of like a meditation, but you do it while you're playing video games. So I've been trying that and just sort of keeping track of how it feels and doing my own personal research and seeing where it goes. So in 2006, I made a film called As Real as Your Life that was shown at the TED conference, which was really great for me. And the film was really, it came out of a time in my life where I was just playing a ton of video games. I was in college and I was spending probably like, it wasn't that I was playing for long stretches, but I would always have the PlayStation on, and any moment I had, I would go play a little bit. And sometimes it was like a smoking break. And I would play, and then I'd go a little too long and I'd miss class. And then I'd play a little longer, and it was bad. So I was having a hard time in school, and I was playing a lot of video games, but I was in a film class, and they challenged us to make a film about something important to us. So I just started sort of writing freeform about like the role video games had played in my life growing up, and the sort of the video game moments that had had the most impact on me, and thinking about like how did those games change who I am as a person, or who I turned out to be. And I just started experimenting. I didn't really have a background in film, but I had a video camera from school, and I just started sort of mixing video game footage and images of me playing and stuff of me out on the street. One of the cool experiences that I sort of tried to capture in the film was one night after playing Grand Theft Auto for like hours and hours, I went outside, and in Grand Theft Auto you do a lot of shooting helicopters, right? I went outside, and here in Philadelphia there's a helicopter that flies really low around the city for the hospital, and I walked outside and the helicopter like buzzed right over, and I was like, oh, like I had a panic attack, and I was like, it was just like I was in the game. Like I knew like I had to do something. It sort of put me on edge, and I said, wow, this is like my brain doesn't know. I realized then that my brain doesn't know if it's real or not. Like it's all the same. It all goes in the same holes, you know. So in terms of how our brain processes experience, it doesn't matter if it's virtual or real. It's still experience. So that was sort of a wake-up call to me. And the film focuses more on the power of games and the impact they've had. And it's a little bit dramatic and like, oh, I'm a video game addict and whatnot. But people seem to like it. And I think for a lot of people, the film sort of, for non-gamers especially, and parents, it sort of was like, oh, this is why they're playing. Like there's something more going on here. It's not just like watching a movie. It's not like playing a board game. Like there's some level of engagement that goes beyond just everything else that's come before it. Like it's special in some way. So the film's been a good door opener for me, and it definitely put me on the path to thinking more broadly about games as more than just entertainment. So Philadelphia is just like, I don't know if it's because we have sort of like a blue collar, like working class thing going on, but people are just very like, go out and do it. There's a lot of events that happen that are just self-organized here in Philly around sort of the DIY scene. So there's a great event called 8 Static, which is like a chiptune event where they bring in chiptune, chiptune is like music made using old video game hardware. All these chiptune artists come in, they have a big dance party. It's like very like circuit bending and just like making stuff yourself, not sort of relying on anyone else to tell you how to do it, and sharing that knowledge and passing it around. There's a great shared workspaces here in Philly where just people pay to be able to hang out with other creative people and work on their projects. Philly's just got a very like strong creative vibe. It's a small city, so everyone knows each other, and there's a lot of collaboration and trading ideas, and people aren't as like overprotective, I feel, like at least in other places that I've worked, people are very private about their ideas, and I feel like in Philly people are just like, this is what I'm doing, like there isn't as like, no one's scared that someone's going to steal their idea because they're already doing it. I feel like that fear comes from when people have an idea but they haven't done it yet. They're like, I don't want anyone else to do it before me, but if you're already doing it and you're already sort of like in it, then that fear sort of subsides some. So I really love being here. I just started a company here, so I'm hoping that it will slowly grow. I'm talking with some people about bringing on some other full-time team members. So yeah, it's a really exciting place to be. I really like it here.